Day Zero 互联共融论坛. Your Excellencies, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to Connected for Shared Prosperity Forum today. My name is Chen Lei from Shanghai Media Group. It's my great pleasure and honor to be the moderator of this very special forum today. In these turbulent times, our first thoughts continue to be with our families, friends, customers, and wider communities. Despite the challenges and losses many of us have faced and will continue to face, a seed that survives the storm will sprout and blossom. A return to normality begins. The goals are achievable, but require breakthroughs in both the speed and degree of progress. A key accelerator, particularly to increase the scale and diffusion of solutions, is that of information and communication technology. ICT is a sector that grows by providing access, connectivity, and efficiency opportunities across almost all other sectors, including government, business, and society. These enablers access, connectivity, and efficiency are essential catalysts to achieve the SDGs by their target after 2030, and possibly even sooner. Plato said, "Never discourage anyone who continually makes progress, no matter how slow." Huawei believes that we can accelerate progress by working together and aiming for the loftiest of ambitions. It will require much discussion and planning to reach the SDGs and beyond. And that is why we are so delighted to have brought so many eminent experts across a number of stakeholders groups for this forum, in participation with UNESCO and co-sponsored by GSMA, the School of Economics, Food and University, and the paper. We hope you find this seminar engaging, insightful, inspirational, and that sparks 1,000 more connected and shared discussions. While conflict resolution and peacekeeping continue to be among its most visible efforts, the United Nations, along with its specialized agencies, is engaged in a wide array of activities to improve people's lives around the world. Climate change remains, of course, one of our biggest global challenges. 2019 was the second warmest on record and bookends the warmest decade, that is from 2010 to 2019. The strength of the global economic recovery remains a big uncertainty, however. One certainty we do have, though, is that this could be a 1 in a 100-year opportunity to collectively build back better. And that would also accelerate economic recovery. One roadmap that would be invaluable here to build a better and more sustainable world is, of course, to hit the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. It is generally accepted that information communications technologies will play a crucial enabling role for countries in reaching the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And although the Paris Agreement calls for our global family to limit global warming to well below 2, which will remain far off track to meet this, and to learn more about how we should collectively learn a legacy worthy of passing on and build a better world for our next generation, it is my great honor to welcome Mr. Siddharth Chatterjee, the United Nations Resident Coordinator to China. Mr. Chatterjee has more than 25 years of experience in international diplomacy, sustainable development, humanitarian coordination, and peace and security, which he acquired at the United Nations and externally. From Kenya to China, Mr. Siddharth Chatterjee brought his experience to share digital technology for sustainable development, low-carbon economy, and post-pandemic recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, let's warmly welcome Mr. Siddharth Chatterjee.
Martin, colleagues from Huawei, ambassadors present, ladies and gentlemen. It's an unusual moment for me because I'm coming from Africa. I'm not used to this sort of a crowd and gathering. I always have a mask on, and it's pretty rare to see a forum of this sort. So let me start, firstly, by congratulating China. I think what they have demonstrated in terms of a public health response, if the entire world were to emulate it, we probably would be flattening the curve of this pandemic a while ago. So a huge shout out to the government and the people of China for their discipline and resilience in ensuring this. To me, this moment is quite personal in many ways because my relationship with Huawei goes back to 2014. I was then the head of the United Nations Population Fund. And Kenya had many challenges, and one of them being very, very high maternal mortality. And we found that 15 counties, we did a bit of analysis, 15 counties used to contribute to about 98% of the maternal deaths. And of those 15, there were 6 that contributed to 50% of the deaths. And primarily the deaths happened from postpartum hemorrhage, HIV, and a lot of hypertension. So we said, what is it that we could do? So as a matter of fact, there are 3 companies that first spoke to me. And one of them was Huawei, the second was Merck, and the third, Merck USA, and the third was Philips from the Netherlands. And soon that 3 grew to another 3. So we had GlaxoSmithKline join us, Safaricom Foundation from Kenya, and Kenya Healthcare Federation. So what became fascinating in this enterprise was this was the first time that the United Nations family partner up with the private sector and go to 6 of the remotest parts of Kenya. And let me describe to you, ladies and gentlemen, when I'm talking about remote, I mean, these are places which border Somalia, where, populations are by and large living close to 100 to 200 years behind time. And we felt that the only way we can change the game is to address this through harnessing big data technology and innovation. In a matter of 2.5 years, this partnership led to a 1/3 reduction of maternal mortality, which in many countries would probably take anywhere from 10 to 15 years, which got us invited to the World Economic Forum in 2017, in January. Now, at the World Economic Forum, basically why they were interested was, this was not a discussion at a web forum or at the UN headquarters. This was real. This was tangible. This was measurable. This was touchable, photographable. And the point was that a partnership that emerged there actually may become the harbinger of the new form of multilateralism that we are going to see in the post-pandemic recovery. We unlocked about $15 million from a trust fund. The private sector partners were not seen as donors to the UN, they were seen as real partners. They had a seat on the table. And then the foreign minister of Kenya launched a public-private partnership platform during the UN General Assembly of 2017. This was the first ever attempted with a US company, a Chinese company, a Dutch company, a Kenyan company, a British company. And what we found was the convergence of ideas, aspirations, innovations was where the trick really lay. And when we launched this platform, there were 6 companies, and that Huawei was part of the founding of that. Today, it's grown to about 80-odd companies. The $15 million investment has turned into a $150 million public-private enterprise. And the reality is that today, COVID has reminded us that it will be the digital footprint that is going to change public health. And in fact, when we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, Sustainable Development Goal number 3 is going to be the anchor around which we will see the success of the remaining SDGs. That's clear. In fact, if you recall, there was a Greek philosopher by the name of Herophilus. And Herophilus said in 265 BC that basically without health, we don't have strength or wit or intelligence or wealth. And basically, that philosophy has come back. and why the primacy of SDG 3, which is part of the first 5 goals of the SDGs, which was the unfinished business, has become primal. Now, therefore, what we found by the embrace of big data technology and innovation, we were able to rapidly reduce maternal mortality. Imagine what potential there is. Today, if you were to Google BBC Kibera slums, Kenya, you will find a midwife with a backpack, walking inside the slums, going house to house, able to deliver a child. She has devices which are technologically absolutely at another spectrum. She's able to loop into an OBGYN through video. She has devices with which she can take care of the 4 antenatal visits of a woman and including a delivery. So it just goes to show that if we were to create an army of tech-savvy community health workers, quite similar, if you remember the echo of the barefoot doctors of China, now just imagine that those same community health volunteers become the drivers of healthcare. And finally, healthcare is about prevention. I think what we're already seeing is that the levels of the flu influenza has dropped suddenly, and one begins to wonder why. And recently I was listening to a BBC program, and they actually said that the reality is that the flu influenza, because we've embraced certain public health measures such as washing our hands, such as wearing a mask, such as keeping a physical distancing, such as respiratory etiquette, has started to reduce the influenza spread. So maybe what we would be coming out with is far more resilience and far more robust health systems, because this perhaps is not the last pandemic, but it's a reminder that our survival, our existentialism is based on good health. And that is going to be foundationally aspected through technology. And therefore, the new multilateralism will include technology from the Silicon Valley to Shenzhen, from Africa to South America. It needs everybody in this game. It needs the private sector, it needs the government, it needs civil society, it needs foundations, but above all, it needs 3 Ps. And the first P is political will. Nation states that demonstrate political will, as we've seen in China. Like I said, to me this is a surprise, and I'm actually being able to stand here in an audience of this sort and know that fully well that I may not get infected. So that's a remarkable, this is quite remarkable that actually there is that level of confidence. And I experienced that during the 3 weeks of my quarantine, which was a moment to pause. The second P is going to be how do we influence public policy and implement it together. And the third is going to be the new form of multilateralism, which is going to be new partnerships, unorthodox, where traditional partners have the ecosystem has changed. Because governments will not be able to unlock that kind of financing that used to be available the pre-COVID time. What we are looking at a COVID time, where we are seeing an economic crisis that rivals the Great Depression of the 1930s. So we suddenly find the Keynesian form of economics has come back into the fore, and governments are bailing out the private sector, and we are seeing all that happen. It will be the private sector, it will be foundations who will be the prime movers, and that is why the political will and the public policy is going to be mission critical. So to this, I see that the United Nations family will play a vital role. In fact, this is also what the Secretary General talks about, is making the United Nations fit for purpose. We have a choice for the UN too. We can either be dynamic or we can be dinosaurs. And that moment of dynamism has been injected into the UN system by the Secretary General, who's been very clear. He wants to see a United Nations which is fit for purpose, as every one of the member states expects us to be. He wants a United Nations to deliver as one. So that means in China, here is my commitment, it's my second week at work, is that the entire 27 UN funds and programs, the specialized agencies will come together, work with the private sector, impact the SDGs both locally and globally. And the third is the UN, which is completely fit for purpose fit for purpose to the context of our new reality. And that new reality is the decade of action where we have to flip the orthodoxy to achieve the SDGs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chatterjee, for wonderful sharing and speech. The world economy is beginning to recover as pandemic starts to recede. We need now to collectively think about how we build back better. As such, it's our great honor to welcome 5 prominent national ministers who will outline their country's recovery agenda, digital transition, and development plans to support UN Sustainable Development Plan goals. Malaysia. Well, Malaysia is one of ASEAN's leading digital nations. Malaysia has shown that digital technologies are key to bridge inequality gaps, aid economic development, and create employment. In order to understand better the experience of Malaysia, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Communications and Multimedia Malaysia, Dr. Saifuddin Abdullah, who will impart Malaysia's digital economy agenda and the lessons from being the pioneer of Asia's rapid digitalization. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Minister Abdullah.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you are. Madam Moderator, my brothers and sisters, first and foremost, I would like to thank Huawei and congratulate you for organizing this very important forum. And I am also very pleased to be here in this forum. How I wish I can be in China. When I was foreign minister, I visited China twice in the period of, 3-4 months. That was quite a record for a foreign minister like me. And I enjoyed it, but more importantly, I think I share with many of my friends who look at China, and in this case, a company like Huawei, we have done so much in many areas pertaining to connectivity, technology, and the digital economy. I would like to continue a little bit from where the speaker before me spoke earlier on the importance of the SDG. In Malaysia, we have embedded the SDGs into our 11th Malaysia Plan, which ends last year, and we are in the process of further strengthening the way we implement the SDGs within the 12th Malaysia Plan. It is our 5-year plan, so this is the 12th Malaysia Plan beginning 2021. And I also like to reiterate Malaysia's position that we would really like countries of the world, members of the United Nations, to further our conversation in the spirit of multilateralism and the working togetherness of the state, the business, and civil society. On the one hand, working with technologies, but on the other hand, which is also very important, and this is aptly mentioned in the theme of our forum this afternoon on sustainability. So middleness, balance, and sustainability should be the mantra for governments as we go forward. And in the context of pandemic COVID-19, the Malaysian government emphasis is really on the balance between life and livelihood. We should be starting with our vaccination on Wednesday, 2 days from now, and we are working very hard to revive the economy. Now, digital economy is the way forward. Technology, the advent of technology is something that is inevitable. Industries of the future are very much dependent on technology. I am 60 years old. I was born with a typewriter. My daughter, who is 27, is born with a computer. And I may not be able to declare myself, even though I'm a minister in charge of technology and communication, but I can't claim that I am fully born or naturally born digital native, but my daughter can surely think that she is. I mean, I always tell people I'm in charge of the television, but my daughter tells me, Pa, you are the minister in charge of television, but I don't watch TV anymore. This is the gap when it comes to application and the usage of technology that government has to take cognizance of. A few days ago, Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, our Prime Minister, launched the My Digital. This is really the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint that calls for concerted effort from the government, business, and people to embrace and expedite digital transformation and innovation for sustainable growth. Among the key foundational areas on which we are building our digital economy are number one, connectivity, which is the cornerstone for any digital growth. We are looking forward to a connected and intelligent world powered by 5G in the very near future, and I will come back to the 5G later. And number two, our computing capacity and power. This is all about cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and all of the new technologies, which I say is inevitable, and we have to embrace it. There is really no choice. We do have a choice as to not having to tweet every second, but Twitter is inevitable. We do have a choice in determining which brand we want to use when it comes to certain gadgets, but the fact that we have to use the gadget is inevitable. Now, on the digital technology, on the My Digital initiative that was announced by the Prime Minister a few days ago, there are three, before I go into the 5G, there are three important features. Number one, on the network. A total of 21 billion Malaysian ringgit will be invested over the next 5 years through the National Digital Network Project to strengthen the existing connectivity and will cover almost 100% of the populated areas in stages, from 7.5 million premises by the end of 2022 to 9 million premises by the end of 2025. The second feature is on submarine cable. About 1.65 billion Malaysian ringgit will be invested by several telecommunication companies to strengthen connectivity to the international submarine cable network until the year 2023, and this is to open up space for faster and more stable international data transfer. Third is on cloud service. Between 12 to 15 billion will be invested by cloud service provider companies such as Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Telekom Malaysia over the next 5 years under conditional approvals to build and manage hyperscale data centers and cloud services. On the 5G, and this is I have alluded to earlier, on the 5G rollout, we actually expedited the rollout. The original plan is to roll out the 5G deployment by the end or in the end of 2022, but we have decided to roll it out by the end of this year. About 15 billion ringgit will be invested over a period of 10 years for the implementation of 5G nationwide, to be carried out by a special purpose vehicle owned by the government. And this is really to ensure that, number one, there will be speed in the rolling out process, and number two, at the end of the day, the people will pay a more compatible fee for the services. What this means is that instead of allowing or inviting 5 or 6 of the big telco company in Malaysia to build their own highways when it comes to 5G, and then everybody will be rushing for the very, very, very limited and expensive 700 spectrum, for example. Now we are saying we are building a single highway and everyone can go on the single highway. Now, my last point for this afternoon is really on something that we want to share with the world and in particular in the region. And this is on 5G cybersecurity. I am proud to announce that Malaysia, we are launching the Southeast Asia's first 5G cybersecurity test lab. The first 5G cybersecurity test lab for ASEAN is a joint effort by the Cybersecurity Malaysia, which is a national cybersecurity specialist agency under my ministry, or known as CSM, and Huawei Technologies Malaysia Sindian Berhad, together with Celcom Axiata Berhad. The test lab will be a model for end-to-end cybersecurity, covering a number of scenarios and offering services, including mobile application and hardware evaluation. It will also include a comprehensive 5G testbed ecosystem comprising technologies such as 5G radio access network or RAN, edge network, and cloud application. The test lab will also carry test cases, including the Internet of Things, security, telecommunication security, and look at improving readiness in responding to 5G-related cyber attacks. So, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to the Internet, connectivity, data, capacity building, development, e-business, cybersecurity, and what have you, the Malaysian government is looking at it from a holistic approach, and all that I'm sharing this afternoon comes out from a national platform called the National Digital Agenda and 4IR Council, chaired by the Prime Minister. It is not the best, but I think this is the way forward. Some of you are very familiar with the Malaysian version of the MSC, but that is 23, 25 years ago. You are actually listening to me in the last 10 minutes explaining to you at looking at some kind of a new version of the MSC. We don't want to call it a new name. It could be later on announced as MSC 2.0, but more importantly, we have a national platform, and I'm referring again to the National Digital and 4IR Council, chaired by the Prime Minister, and we are hoping that we can consolidate our work better, and we can also roll out all of our activities in the best of ways. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Dato Saifuddin Abdullah. Thank you very much from Malaysia. We now turn to a leader of one of Europe's leading countries, Spain. We will hear more about how Spain is pivoting towards a green and sustainable recovery. Its recovery, transformation and resilience plan was specifically drafted to fit with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Maria Leas Moroto, Minister of Industry, Commerce and Tourism, Spain, to explain more with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Minister Maria Leas Moroto.
It is a pleasure to participate in the Mobile World Congress Shanghai 2021. I would like to congratulate the organizers for choosing the theme Connected for Shared Prosperity. Because the pandemic will pass thanks to the availability of vaccines, and it will be the time of economic and social recovery that will have to address challenges that the pandemic has exacerbated, such as digitalization and sustainability, an inseparable binomial. There is a broad consensus on the need to transform economies towards more sustainable production models. In fact, the European Commission presented in 2019 the European Green Pact to make Europe the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. This is not an easy task because it requires addressing the transformation of the productive structures of our countries. As my colleagues from Portugal and Italy know very well, the recovery and resilience mechanism that has been approved by the European Commission to help repair the economic and social damage caused by the coronavirus has its priority to lay the foundation for a modern and more sustainable Europe. We must address recovery not only to repair the damage caused by the crisis, but also to transform the economic model in the medium and long term towards a more sustainable and resilient one, as the capacity to resist, adapt, or recover from events such as the ones we are experiencing. For this reason, the European Recovery Plan, which will mobilize significant public and private investments in the coming years, has its main growth factors, the ecological and digital transition, linking economic aid to digital and sustainable projects. As the Commission President said, the EU economy should be more sustainable, resilient, and digital. Europe must lead the fight against climate change. This requires accelerating the dual green and digital transition, properly defining the tools and ensuring that it is socially just and inclusive. On the first issue, the Commission launched the European Recovery Fund, the largest part of which addresses the technological transformation and the green transition. Regarding the tools, there was a consensus that digitalization was a critical factor for sustainability. Digitalization accelerated during the lockdowns. Citizens, companies, and industries all had to adapt very quickly to the online world. There were many examples: online monitoring of processes, acceleration of teleworking, online purchases and transactions with savings in energy or travel. This reinforced the idea that some sociologists and economists have been insisting on for some time that digitalization must put sustainability at the center of all its policies. Digital technologies are a fundamental tool for addressing decarbonization. There are many examples of how digitalization contributes directly to sustainability. For example, in agriculture, by controlling pests or ripening processes; in healthcare, by remotely monitoring patients. Here we come to the third point. We must ensure that the transition is fair and inclusive. This requires both compensatory mechanisms and ensuring the digital capabilities of companies and citizens. There must be no digital or other divides, such as rural-urban divide, and divide between countries, industries, and sectors, and so on. An example of those gaps is the difficulty of joint actions to take advantage of economies of scale, hence the EU's interest in promoting alliances, such as for batteries and hydrogen. Spain, like the rest of the countries, is suffering the effects of the pandemic, but also there's the effect on the economy and society. The government's priority continues to be saving lives, saving companies and jobs. However, we're also working on reconstruction and recovery, which will come hand in hand with the vaccination process. In October, Prime Minister Sanchez presented the Recovery, Transformation and Resilience Plan, a country draft that draws inspiration from and elaborates on Agenda 2030 and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It outlines a roadmap for the modernization of the Spanish economy, the recovery of economic growth and job creation, for solid, inclusive and resilient economic reconstruction after the crisis, and to respond to the challenges of the next decade. This project represents a vision of the Spain in the future, looking into the following objective: a prosperous and resilient Spain, a Spain that accelerates its technological and digital transformation, strengthening the productivity skills and the connectivity of the population. A Spain that is committed to decarbonization, favoring new, affordable, and safe developments that guarantee the sustainability of our production model, promoting adaptation and resilience in the face of climate change. A country that favors the creation and competitiveness of companies, stimulates the competitiveness of its industry, promotes science and R&D, and firmly believe in excellence, equity in education. The plan will mobilize 140 billion euros over the next 6 years, with 37% of the investment dedicated to the ecological transition and 33% to the digital transition. The plan focuses on policies and projects to address the double green and the digital transition, such as the SPAN 2030 Industrial Policy Strategy, which centers on development of Industry 4.0 for the digital transformation of companies, the roadmap for renewable hydrogen, the Sustainable and Connected Mobility Strategy, the Sustainable Tourism Strategy 2030, and the Digital Agenda 2025. Regarding the Digital Agenda 2025, it is the roadmap to accelerate the digital transformation of the Spanish economy, including a set of measures to, among others, guarantee digital connectivity, the deployment of 5G, the digitalization of government and companies, or the development of the digital economy and AI in line with the digital policies outlined by the EU. To deploy this digitalization strategy, we will implement various specific plans, such as the SME Digitalization Plan, which envisages the promotion of disruptive innovation, such as AI, Internet of Things, Big Data, to take advantage of the opportunities of the digital economy through scalable programs that will be deployed through public-private partnership. I end with a final thought. At this time, uncertainty persists as the virus continues to evolve, and it is necessary to accelerate the vaccination process while continuing to protect health and also businesses and employment. However, we must emphasize on and work to modernize our productive model, incorporating digitalization and sustainability as levers of change. I encourage other countries to put the dual green and the digital transition at the center of their growth strategies. Because digitalization and sustainability have become the inseparable binomial. Well, I do think, as I mentioned, to deploy this digitalization strategy, digitalization and sustainability have become an inseparable binomial. Thank you for your attention.
Gracias, Minister Maria Leas Amroto from Spain. We now turn to another Asian leading digital nation, a pioneer for a connected future. It's no surprise to hear that Thailand is also ahead on 5G infrastructure rollouts in the Asia-Pacific region. Advanced infrastructure will not only provide a foundation for Thailand to be a digital hub in the ASEAN region, but also benefit everyone in the kingdom. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mrs. Vanapol Devahadin, Secretary General of the National Digital Economy and Society Commission, Ministry of Digital Economy and Society. And Mrs. Vanapol will explain in detail their plan and practices in the speech of National Policy Driving Digital Technology and Sustainable Development, Building Digital Hub of ASEAN. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mrs. Vanapol.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, my warm greetings to all honored speakers and audience. We are gathering here for over the world in the Connected for Shared Prosperity Forum to tackle challenges brought by the pandemic. These challenges are faced by the whole of community, such as the consequent economic downturn and increasing inequality, and we believe digital technologies are essential to achieve a better green recovery and step closer to our ultimate goals of sustainable development. On behalf of Ministry of Digital Economy and Society, I am delighted to have this opportunity to share the Thailand national strategies on digital economy. We are building digital hub of ASEAN for a vision to boost economy, improve social welfare, being and achieve sustainable development. Next slide, please. To achieve this ambition, we have developed a Thailand Digital Economy and Society Development Plan for national level. This plan acts as a blueprint to revolutionize government operations, business practices, and people lifestyle. It carries our 6 strategies together to build equitable and inclusive society and increase digital skill for workforce in this digital era. Among the strategy, digital infrastructure sits at the fundamental layer to foster digital services, platform, and businesses. Thailand is building a countrywide high-capacity digital infrastructure to provide accessible and affordable internet for individuals and small business. Building upon this foundation, we encourage the digital transformation through initiatives such as digital SME, digital agriculture, and digital industry to capitalize new business models and create economic value. The transformation also goes into public sector. It will create an open government and facilitate people and business by an integrated one government. To ensure inclusive and equal users of technology, we are actively implement programs of digital community, digital learning and knowledge, and digital health. This is the key to ensure the citizen can take advantage of digital transformation. Meanwhile, the government is working to improve digital skill and literacy across sectors, such as people are able to acquire benefits from digital society only if he or she is equitable with this such skill. As we have recognized, digital technology has prosperity impact on society, especially during and after the pandemic. Digital economy promises new ways for business to grow, bring social well-being, and sit at that time aligned with our sustainable development goal. Thailand will seize this opportunity to build its digital leadership for better future. Next slide, please. Based on the Speed Test Global Index last year, you can see that Thailand ranked at the top out of 176 countries in fixed broadband internet speed testing. This list represents Thailand's country's economy's effort and advancing digital infrastructure to boost economy. Among ASEAN countries, we are the first to launch commercial 5G services. Next slide. And a national 5G committee is formed to ensure necessary support from the government in 5G development at the national level. We aim to provide extensive, equal, and efficient 5G utilization across sectors and help both the individuals and business. General Prayut Chan-o-cha, the Prime Minister of Kingdom of Thailand, is the chairman of National 5G Committee, which consists of 26 committee members. This channel makes it possible for the ministry, industry associations, and academic institutions coordinate on 5G development and align with the digital economy roadmap. We have taken initiatives include boosting 5G adoption, promoting telecom infrastructure sharing system, and improving related regulations. Next slide, please. To develop Thailand digital economy, Ministry of Digital Economy and Society, Digital Economy Promotion Agency, and Huawei opened Thailand 5G Ecosystem Innovation Center in Thailand, in Bangkok. This center will serve as a sandbox for digital innovation for 5G applications and services across various industries. These innovations will create new business opportunities for SMEs, startups, and education institutions, paving the way to achieve Thailand 4.0 and build digital hub in ASEAN region. Next slide, please. To strengthen the country's digital competitiveness, one of many crucial factors is efficiency of the public service. Currently, there are many initiatives that government create to improve and change the public service. One of them is government data center and the cloud services, so we call GDCC, which aim to build a digital fundamental to drive digital transformation in Thailand. The government data center and cloud services provide high standard and highly secure cloud service for government agencies. DDCC supports the use of new technology to support government operations such as big data, AI, IoT service, which we aim to improve the efficiency, support the use of advanced technology in government operations, and to decrease the government budget for digital infrastructure development too. Next slide, please. We believe it is vital to bring benefits of digital technology to all, not just the happy few. In addition to provide accessible and affordable connectivity, the Charat Internet project is laying high-speed internet network through an efficient network to villages without private investment to push forward opportunity for broadband access to the people in the area. A total of 24,700 internet service points open in the public to use by free of charge. The project also lays more than 80,000 kilometers for fiber optic core network to many remote areas, which build crucial digital infrastructure to provide digital opportunity and bridging the digital gap in many areas throughout the country. Next slide. Together with the Digital Community Center project, which is a learning center for communities to learn digital skills and build confidence in the use of digital services. Currently, the Digital Community Center has built 2,277 sites, cover 77 provincials in Thailand, and over 2,300 volunteer staff working here. All groups, including senior citizens, the disabled, children and youth, women and disadvantaged, and residents from remote areas can learn digital skills in the Digital Community Center. The center integrates the central, regional, and the local government agencies to provide people with one-stop service. It not only provides internet connectivity, but also functions as a knowledge sharing platform and activity center in areas such as education, agriculture, healthcare, trade, services, and tourism. The object is set to reduce the inequality to help people in all groups get the most from use public and private digital services. It also matches the UN Sustainable Goals of lifting poverty, reducing inequity, and providing quality education. We also have This Is Mine and the Digital Community Center will take continuous effort to enable people to understand and make use of digital services directly and indirectly. More importantly, the center is a platform for the government and understand the needs of the community to build people's confidence in using digital services. In long term, the center will help re-equip Thailand's workforce and enhance their employment skills in the digital society. I'm looking forward to the rising prosperity brought by connectivity and digital technologies in the future. And this must be achieved through cooperation between public sector and private sector for domestic level and international level. Together, let's overcome the challenges and build a better future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister Vanarporn, David Hardin. And I would like to take this opportunity to have some very small interaction. Digital Village is especially interesting and important. So in line with the sustainable development, how has it positively impacted those people, especially during the pandemic?
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to say that digital village has played a very important role during the pandemic. The village e-commerce program has supported the villagers to sell their local product online, create income to the villagers, while they can maintain social distancing practice. The Digital Community Center is also providing the basic digital infrastructure, especially for outreach to learn online via various e-learning programs during the school closure caused by the pandemic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your sharing, and wish you good luck. Thank you. Thank you. All right, now I would like to move to Hungary to learn more about how they are aiming to build back better through a digital and green economic recovery. It's my distinct honor to welcome Lazaro Bokovic, Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Hungary, to provide more details in a speech titled Green Economy and Technology Information. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Lazaro Bokovic.
Dear colleagues, participants of the conference, thanks for inviting me to this prestigious event today and giving me the opportunity to take the virtual floor and address this year's Mobile World Congress. The United Nations predicts that human consumption will double in the next 40 years and annual waste generation will increase by 70% by 2050. Man influences his environment in his daily activities, although this is often not even made aware of us. For our planet to be livable, we must cautiously strive for sustainability. To do this, however, we need to have the right knowledge and learn to live in harmony with our environment. We need to use our finite resources efficiently, exploit renewable resources instead of non-renewable ones, and perhaps most importantly, think ahead so that future generations may be born into a livable world. A joint effort is needed to solve the global problem. The strategic framework for this is provided by the pursuit of climate-neutral, resource-efficient, sustainable and competitive economy. We see support for research and development and innovation as an important element in the gradual transition to a circular economic model, which can help reduce dependency on primary raw materials in technological processes. These tools can be effective in the regulatory environment that adequately supports innovation, research and development. Hungary has made an ambitious national sustainability plan focusing on 3 pillars of sustainable development: social, economic and environmental pillar. The social pillar is reinforced by the Hungary's holistic family policy, the main aims of which are to empower families and to achieve lasting turn in demographic trends. Another important component of boosting sustainable and inclusive economic growth is the intention of the government to consolidate Hungary as a knowledge and innovation-based nation. Hungary is one of the only 21 countries worldwide that have managed major economic growth while reducing carbon dioxide emission. Currently, 70% of electricity production is CO2 neutral, and the goal is to increase this share to over 90% by 2030. The government adopted a climate and nature protection action plan to further strengthen and expand the volume of Hungary's green policy. According to a recent survey of the European Commission, 96% of Hungarians regard climate change as a serious problem and support action. One of the key objectives of the Climate and Nature Protection Action Plan, initiated by the Ministry and published in February 2020, is to reduce and prevent the generation of waste in our environment. The action plan includes measures to reduce waste, eliminate illegal waste deposition in the country, as well as commitments in the areas of the sustainability by the use of renewable energy and climate protection. The measures are based on innovative solutions, in the development of which the primary consideration is the enforcement of principles of environmental protection and sustainability. A good example of the digital-based registration and data provision system of the waste management sector is the Unified Waste Management Informatics System operating in Hungary as a subsystem of the National Environmental Information System, in which the relevant data is currently collected completely electronically, ensuring data quality improvement, less administration and the possibility of electronic administration. The number one objective of the action plan is to clean up the country of illegal waste, in accordance with which the 2 phases of the Clean Country program have been announced. As a part of the project, from July 2020, the Ministry of Innovation and Technology started measures to illegal waste deposition. In connection with the project, an application called Waste Radar has been developed, which is available to anyone free of charge, and in which illegal landfills can be reported. In order to support our ambitious plans, we also need to deploy innovative digital technologies. The government's new national digitalization strategy focuses on 4 key pillars: digital infrastructure, digital skill, digital economy, and digital state. The most important goal of the strategy is to put Hungary among the top 10 EU member states at the vanguard of digitalization by 2030. This means reducing the proportion of the Hungarians between the ages of 16 and 71 who don't use the internet to 2%. Connecting all groups of the society and leaving no one behind is one of the core universal values of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Today, 4G coverage is outstanding in Hungary. It exceeds 99.5%. However, the future is in 5G. 5G technology has many aspects that leads to the world towards green solutions and enables it to become more sustainable and environment friendly. One of the basic principles of the 5G is keep the energy consumption of the mobile network at current levels or even lower, despite significant increases in data traffic and the number of base stations. This aim can be fulfilled by the design of 5G networks and different techniques that include more efficient system-level solutions to cut power consumption. Due to several analyses, there are 3 main industries as a result of using 5G. We reduce their current high energy consumption: energy, healthcare, and manufacturing. As 5G appears in more and more other types of sectors, it is possible to deploy technology in ways that protect the environment and promote long-term sustainability. The aim should be to support this sector of 5G developments in order to have value-added results regarding sustainability, thanks to the unique abilities of the 5G. There are several areas where 5G brings positive changes in case of environmental protection, just to name some of them. 5G networks can help to reduce CO2 emissions by reducing travel through the greater use of remote working and by allowing more efficient use of our transportation systems and industrial processes. 5G enables new functionalities that can be used to detect environmental changes in real time and aid in natural disaster recovery efforts, both protecting our people and preserving our planet. 5G helps industries from manufacturing to transport to agriculture to improve energy resource and material efficiency enabled by automatization and digitalization. 5G supports the aim to have autonomous urban systems in cities by having real-time databases about street lightings, having intelligent traffic signals, control systems on the roads that leads to lower emissions. And last, sensors connected to the 5G networks in agriculture will improve the efficiency of nutrient supply, irrigation and pest management, which in turn will result in healthier foods. And we can still name several others. Hungary is committed to become one of the major European centers of 5G developments and introduce 5G among the first in the world, therefore take the leading role in the region for 5G penetration and contribute to sustainable development with the benefits of the 5G technology. To achieve these aims, Hungarian 5G Coalition plays an important role. 5G Coalition, representing the Hungarian 5G ecosystem, such as ICT sector, academia, research community, and government institutions, continuously expanded with vertical industries, is a professional collaboration platform of 86 member organizations. 5G Coalition participates in the utilization of Hungarian innovation potential in the way that 5G Coalition member organizations provide 5G competence and 5G capabilities for the innovation centers. One of the main Hungarian innovation centers is the so-called Zalazon test track that supports many programs, concentrate on environmental goals as widespread use of electric vehicles, sustainability, zero-emission development of renewable fuels. This special test environment is the most modern facility of its kind in the world for testing autonomous vehicles for sustainable future. In conclusion, Hungary considers its mission to achieve a more sustainable and greener development through the use of digital technologies. Embracing digital technologies can help tackle climate change and boost sustainable development, but also generate income, create jobs, and boost economic activities. There is a strong need for closer global collaboration to break through ICT innovations, address climate crisis, and create a more sustainable future. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Minister Bokovic from Hungary. Connected for Shared Prosperity is today's overarching theme, and Portugal is an example in this area also. Portugal was one of the pioneers for international trade, establishing some of the first major sea routes between Europe and Asia, paving the way for global connections. And also, Portugal is also leading in green energy transition. Last year, a stunning 54% of its electricity production came from renewable energy sources, predominantly wind and solar. The Portuguese government is committed to improving upon this, and to support sustainable development. Digital innovation plays a very key part in this process. And now please join me in welcoming Pedro Nuno Santos, Minister of Infrastructure and Housing, Portugal, to elaborate more with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Minister Pedro Nuno Santos.
Good morning to all. I would like to begin by thanking the kind invitation to be here with you today, and to address a few words sharing the vision of Portugal on such an interesting and actual topic. The pandemic crisis the world is facing today has proved that we all must be more active in sharing knowledge and building solutions, and that this will only be effective if this effort is deployed in a fast and collaborative way. Portugal has a long heritage of discovering and creating new pathways. Portugal's spirit of exploration took us back in the 15th century to explore the oceans from Europe to Asia, building cross-continental trading of goods, but also, and even more relevant, interchanging culture and knowledge. But no country can live entirely from its historic achievements, turn to its past. That is why Portugal needs to make the best of current trends to be able to drive in the future with the latest technological revolution. We strongly believe that embracing the transformation brought by digital technologies will enable Portugal to continue to play a significant role in the world. Being the most western country in Europe, we have a strategic geographic location to connect submarine cables, landing stations, and robust data centers, thus making Portugal a crucial hub in such an essential sector for the digitalization of economy and society. Also, clean energy availability has also been sought for decades and will continue to be pursued in the future, with green hydrogen being the latest bet, with several projects on the pipeline. So, this combination of excellent connectivity and green energy availability positions Portugal as a very interesting place for the development of the digital ecosystems of the future. We clearly see the agendas of the circular bioeconomy and digital transformation as a tremendous opportunity for the development of the Portuguese industry, the increase of its productivity and competitiveness, and the structural transformation of our economy. So to conclude, our objective, our vision, is that Portugal can and will strengthen its position as an innovation hub, a hub for digital technologies, green and cost-effective energy, and highly skilled talent in Europe. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Minister Pedro Nuno Santos from Portugal. Well, in the past, we have such a great pleasure and honor to hear all those 5 prominent national ministers, their sharings, their presentations, and we got so many inspirations. And we got to know the global challenges need a global response, and we look to the younger generations to lead the charge in building back better, which matters most at this moment. Technologies for the benefit of all. Affordable and accessible internet will improve living quality, boost the economy, and create digital opportunities for the underprivileged, which seems to be so overwhelmingly important to all over the world. Digitalization and sustainability are inseparable binomial to address global challenges and social recovery, and also to build our resilience to tackle climate change and to boost the sustainable development. Digital technologies are the key and always be the key. To build an inclusive, sustainable, and accessible digital ecosystem in ASEAN, digital infrastructure is always forever the fundamental factor and base. And besides, circular economy and digital transformation increase the competitiveness and productivity for our future opportunities, for our future generations, for our future development. So we have wrapped up the past 1 hour view sharing and the speech presentation. For the next hours, we are going to have some further looks. The UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development aims to unite global citizens to take action and commit to transformation for the better. Better you, better me, better nations, better universe, better future. So the collaboration with international organizations, state unions, institutions, industries, and business thought leaders becomes the key solution to achieve these goals. So in this section, we have digital technologies and UN SDGs, perspectives from industries, organizations, and as well, so many influential people and KOL presenting today and also online. We're going to have a very brilliant group discussions later on. So that's why I would like to give you a reminding that online audience, I know many of audience today, they participating online today. Online audience can submit questions and comments in the broadcasting chat box. On-site audience can write down questions and comments on the notepad and submit to event team, because later on we're going to have a very, very interesting and I thought would be very inspirational discussion and interaction with all the audience presenting here and also online. So be there, okay? Right. So the corporate sector will be a major stakeholder and a contributor in building back better. Huawei is committed to being at the vanguard of the business community efforts in this regard. So it is my distinct honor to welcome Catherine Chen, the Corporate Senior Vice President and the Corporate Board Director of Huawei, to explain more with us. Catherine Chen continues to provide an essential role within Huawei in increasing its transparency and openly communicating with governments, media, other stakeholders all around the world. She's a pioneer in global connectivity to build back better. Catherine Chen will now share her thoughts through her speech, Believe in the Power of Technology. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ms. Catherine Chen.
Distinguished guests, thank you for attending today's forum on Connected for Shared Prosperity. We've all had mixed feelings about 2020. The pandemic has changed our lives. Many things we took for granted no longer exist, and our values have changed. My biggest takeaway from the past year has been just how hard it is for society to reach a consensus. There seems to be constant conflict and disagreement, from deciding if it's necessary to impose lockdowns to debating if it's worth it to wear a mask. Today, we've come together to discuss the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I personally believe that technology is crucial to advancing these goals, and together we must do two things to fully unleash the power of technology and drive sustainable development. Our first challenge will be to reach an honest consensus on whether technology is an engine of human progress. Looking back over history, we've seen how large social changes happen in lockstep with breakthroughs in science and technology. But today, technological advancements are hyped and politicized, sometimes demonized. Many have stopped believing in the power of technology because of fear and distrust. Some are going to great lengths to hinder the development of technology. I recently read a report which said that any important digital platform that is dominated by China will be highly dangerous to the US if not effectively contained, and that 5G was one such platform. 5G is a standardized technology defined by its high bandwidth, low latency, and broad connectivity. It helps traditional industries transform and can benefit all. Wide-scale 5G deployment can already be seen in multiple industries around the world. Everyday consumers are benefiting from 5G experiences, while industrial use in seaports, mines, and the transportation sector is increasing operational efficiency. Is this a bad thing? I don't think so. If we claim that technology is critically important, but its development is ideologically wrong, this will only result in division, confusion, and regression. We must reach a global consensus on this issue and believe in the power of technology to leverage it for the benefit of the society. Of course, there is always the danger that someone will abuse a new technology. This is not a new concern, but since the Industrial Revolution, we have seen how establishing rules to manage technological risks can safeguard us. Through rules, technological developments can transcend national boundaries and improve the livelihoods of all without incurring undue risk. We are entering a digital era, and many are hard at work creating the governance rules for cybersecurity, privacy protection, and trust AI that will keep us safe. For the rest of us, it's time to be confident and open to technological development. Our second challenge will be taking resolute action to make technology truly effective and create value for all. It may be hard to reach a consensus, but it is easy to shut down technology. For enterprises, believing in tech can start from something small. For example, let's look at the minimum viable product concept. Typically, MVP refers to the product development stage, where what you've made just meets the most critical of user requirements while using the smallest amount of resources. That MVP can then be constantly iterated and refined after its launch. Building broad consensus is difficult, so we can draw on this MVP concept to help technological advancement continue. By focusing on the limited common understanding we right now, and by keeping in mind what resources are actually available, we can drive progress step by step. Iteration means perfect. Fostering conflict will mean stagnation. Huawei has always supported technological advancement. We believe ultimately tech benefits humanity. We also believe digital tech will help the UN achieve its SDGs. Already, Huawei has explored many applications of digital tech guided by the SDGs. Huawei's smart PV solution is being widely used in more than 60 countries to reduce carbon emissions by 148 million tons. This is the equivalent of planting more than 200 million trees. In Ethiopia alone, we have helped our customers deploy over 400 solar power stations, reducing carbon emission by 2,850 tons. In China, we have also helped build the world's largest solar stations dedicated to agriculture and fishing in Ningxia and the Shandong provinces. What's more, Huawei and UNESCO launched the Open Schools program over the course of a 3-year partnership to help schools in Egypt, Ethiopia, and Ghana improve their digital skills with online education. Every one of these examples, every single connection, every gram of emissions reduced, every watt of electricity saved, every small improvement we made couldn't have been achieved without small advances in tech. This is the value tech brings to the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Catherine Chen. Fostering peace in the minds of men and women globally is the fundamental goal of UNESCO. So in such spirit, UNESCO develops educational tools to help people live as global citizens and free of hate and intolerance, and aspires the very child and citizen has access to quality education. How to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all is part of the UN's SDG 4. UNESCO is leading the charge in this regard too. So today, facing the COVID-19 pandemic, school closures and education gaps have also become a truly core issue that the world must face and focus on. So we are today very deeply honored to welcome Ms. Stefania Giannini, Assistant Director General of UNESCO, to tell us more. Stefania has devoted her career to promoting education as a fundamental human right through the importance of language, lifelong learning, culture, freedom of expression and identity in the effort to ensure more inclusive and equal societies, to share her thoughts and to hear her thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Stefania Giannini.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, let me start by wishing Chinese people around the world a very happy Lunar New Year of the Ox. May it be one of solid recovery and peace. And I wish thank Huawei for inviting UNESCO to co-host this time forum with focus on leveraging connectivity for the public good and shared prosperity. This panel brings together speakers from the worlds of technology and education, representing the public and private sectors. And this is the way to go today. This is the mix in the going forward to address the very steep challenges facing education in our societies as they grapple with the potentially devastating economic and social consequences of the pandemic. These challenges may not all be new, but the paradigm has dramatically shifted in the last year, as we know, exposing and amplifying inequalities across the border. Just 1 year ago, China's entire education system pivoted into remote learning mode with an impressive record in ensuring learning continuity. And over the past 12 months, we lived through the most radical disruption in education, something we never saw in history, we can say. Today, Still more than half the world's students' population face either full school closures or part-time schedules, often running hybrid model. Globally, schools have been fully closed for an average of 3.5 months since the onset of the pandemic. A figure rises to 5.5 when localized schools closures are taken into account. That means approximately 2/3 of an academic year, and it's a huge disruption. This is the time to take stock. This is the time to support the recovery and transformation of education. Technology is slated to play a big part in this, with major implications for students, for teachers, and systems across the board. Based on our scoping studies, some 174 countries provided government-led distance learning solutions that combine online learning, TV or radio programs during the pandemic. It should be commended for sure. But the gaps are wide, we know, and damaging. Nearly half of the world is still offline. In Africa, so to give you some numbers, 4 out of 5 learners don't have access to the internet. And even low-tech solutions have not bridged divides. In the lowest income countries, the household access to radio and TV only ranges from 10 to 30%. So what's the way forward? Huawei was an active partner from the beginning of our Global Education Coalition, a global platform which UNESCO established from the beginning in order to support member states, countries, education systems, as well as education communities, learners and students and teachers first in this unprecedented environment they suddenly happen to live in. And this global platform is about bringing so far together more than 150 members from the private sector, the US systems, civil society. And it's now time to take a stock and to project on the screen numbers about reopening schools and the way we have to go together. GSMA is another important partner for us, and let me thank is Director General Matt Grandris, I see in the room. Well, the message from the beginning was clear. Universal and affordable access to the internet is essential to provide access to essential public service and to build the resilience of learning systems, placing priority on the least developed countries and vulnerable groups. This is not a new call, but it has gained foremost urgent in the crisis as a real-life line for humanity. Universality, inclusion, and affordability are pillars, are cardinal principles here. Bold, long-term, and innovative partnerships backed by substantial financing are required. But we know all too well that is not just a matter of connecting schools and households, but transforming teaching and learning. And this is the more educational side of the mission we have. This is the path most countries are now, according to one of our surveys conducted with the World Bank and UNICEF, other two very active partners in the coalition, 19% are incorporating technology into school systems this year. There can be no digital transformation without putting teachers at the center and increasing the availability of digital learning resources. This crisis has demonstrated that technology doesn't substitute to teachers. A new balance has to be struck between teachers and technology, with digital literacy becoming a compulsory skill. There are key players incorporating and testing digital contents across all subjects and grade levels to improve learning. We know this is a colossal mission. Once again, the principle of inclusion and accessibility must apply. UNESCO promotes digital resources as public goods, ones that should be openly accessible and sensitive to linguistic and cultural diversities. We should not lose sight of our goal in leverage technology. It is to provide universal access to inclusive, equitable, quality education and lifelong learning. Without this aim, we run the risk of further digging inequalities, including ones along Jordan lines. UNESCO now is developing a guiding framework for technology-enabled open schools to support member states in building more inclusive, resilient learning systems. We already heard from Madam Chen mentioning the work we are doing together in partnership with Huawei in countries like Egypt, Ethiopia, and Ghana. Our campus is a humanistic approach to realize the potential of technology for humanity as a common good. In this vein, UNESCO is leading the development of recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence, which will be the first global standard-setting instrument in this field adopted in November this year. Through the Global Education Coalition, we are keen to mobilize, to continue mobilize expertise and generating new alliances to establish digital learning platforms and moving from the resolution emergency situation we had last year, hopefully soon, to recover packages for education. And I wish to invite all of you today to event we are scheduling at the end of March, 24 to 31. A date will be communicated soon, where we'll wrap the work we've done together so far. So my message to the Mobile Congress is: build education into your business plan, because it's the engine of prosperity. Work in partnership and support a bottom-up solution that give every child in the world, youth and old, the chance to learn in multiple settings throughout their life. With this, I wish you a fruitful participation in this Mobile World Congress. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Stefano. And also, China is energetically promoting the all-round green transformation of social and economic development. And the top priority of the overall green transformation is to reach the peak of carbon and neutrality. Under such background, what is the role for educational institution? So today, we should warmly welcome Professor Li Zhiqing, the Dean of Research Center for Environmental Economics, to share his thoughts on cultivation for next generation, the green financing to maintain sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Li Zhiqing.
Distinguished Excellencies, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Li Zhiqing. I'm from Fudan University. Well, the topic I want to talk about is closely related with the theme of the forum. We want to talk about how finance can help with sustainable development. We know the year 2020 is a very important year, especially for sustainable development. Green development is especially underscored in 2020. And for China, that's especially true. As our host just said, China has announced that before 2030, we have to peak the carbon emission, and also 2060 to realize carbon neutrality. But more importantly, last year, we have made the decision on the next 5-year development plan. And in this plan, A very important concept was proposed, that is to realize a comprehensive green transition for social and economic development. Such a green transition is very important for China as we're facing the post-pandemic recovery. This is a critical moment. And also for the world and for China, as we continue to develop based on our research and analysis, we believe this green transition is very essential. The green transition will mean that China will join the world to accelerate its steps to push green transition. We know in the past decades, in traditional sectors, we have put more emphasis on environment protection, for example, the treatment and prevention of pollution in air, water, and soil. In other areas, China has also made the commitment to achieve breakthrough. As we aim for achieving those breakthroughs, for example, we talk about digital technology, digital economy, how important these infrastructures are, but we should always remember Shanghai is one of the most important international financial hubs, and we should never forget the role finance can play, because finance is very important in speeding up green transition. If we look back on the past 3 years, we can see that finance has successfully helped China to speed up green transition. In 2017, China started the pilot zone to use finance to accelerate green transition. In 2019, we expanded the area to 6 provinces and 9 districts. We have done a lot of pilots. So far, green finance, or the finance sector of China, have been working hand in hand with environment protection authorities. And I noticed the news before stepping onto the stage. The State Department of China has announced that the government will put more efforts to leverage finance to accelerate the green transition. Financial organizations such as banks, insurance companies, and the bond equity market and security market, those are very important financial instruments and tools, and those will be used to accelerate green transition in China. Based on our observation, those measures are very helpful. With our hard efforts, till today, green credits in China, or green loans in China, have accounted more than 10% in the total loans. That means in 10 yuan, 1 yuan is directly connected with green development. So that can accelerate our comprehensive green transition. So I want to emphasize that finance can help traditional sectors to be environment friendly and can help address traditional environment problems. And it can also help us better deal with climate change. As early as 2013, China started the carbon trading. And at this moment, in January 2021, China also started to integrate into the global carbon trading. So for those green finance and those other financing instruments are highly integrated into our comprehensive green transition. Of course, the finance sector should support our efforts to protect the environment and treat environmental problems, but also we should support the development of digital economy and digital technologies. And we should use more high-tech products, solutions to address environment problems, and we should support the development of those companies. For example, in the Pfizer vaccine, well, we know how much efforts have been given to support SMEs and startups. So we should also leverage financial tools to support green technologies and those startups that focus on the green transition. And also we ask ourselves, how can finance sector better support the green development? Well, I would like to elaborate on 5 points. The first one is we should further develop the green finance market that includes green credit, green insurance, green loans, so that our traditional financial instruments can be better incorporated to support the green transition. Second, we all know how important infrastructures are. Well, in finance, what we care about is how can we turn our environmental protection efforts into social value. So we have to identify and also calculating or assessing our environmental protection efforts and commercialize it and fully leverage its value through financial means. Well, those kind of projects have already kicked off in many places in China. Another thing is we need to build a very strong green finance market and encourage the transparency of green-related information and encourage companies to disclose such kind of information. Well, on this information disclosure, well, in many pilot zones, we have done a lot of efforts. We believe in the future we'll leverage ESG financing mechanism and other platforms and channels. We can realize a more transparent and more open platform to disclose information and share information. Well, I come from a university. I represent a academia. So what I want to say is we have to train talents with interdisciplinary skill set who can combine the know-how in finance with green subjects, so we can facilitate sustainable development in the next 5 to 20 years, or even in the longer term. We can have the talent pool to realize green transition. I believe Huawei, as a member of the company sector, has made a lot of contribution. And I visited the exhibition area. I noticed that Huawei has a recycling smartphone project, and this recycling consumers participating in the program can get credits. So they are also using financial tools and means to achieve the environment efforts. Allow me to conclude by saying being green is being gold. Well, a good environment can generate commercial value. Thank you very much.
谢谢. Thank you very much, Professor Li. Mobile technology remains at the center of how we address our most significant global challenges. And for recent years, mobile infrastructure has proved robust and resilient, serving as the cornerstone of continuity and recovery. And this is reflected in SDG 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure, where the mobile industry continues to achieve its highest impact. And now let's welcome Mr. Mads Granrud, GSMA Director of General, who is a strong proponent of sustainability and leads the mobile industry in becoming the first sector to broadly commit to the United Nations Sustainable Development Global Goals in 2016. Mr. Mats Greenroot will deliver a speech on Connected Impact, Better Future. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mats Greenroot.
Well, hello everyone. It is a honor and great pleasure for me to be there with you today, albeit virtually. And thank you to Huawei for your kind invitation. And we are just about to embark on MWC Shanghai that starts tomorrow. My name is Mats Greenroot, and I'm the Director General of the GSMA. Today, I want to talk to you about how connected impact can create a better future, delivering both business value and social value. So to my first question, what is connected impact? Well, for the mobile industry, which contributes $4.1 trillion to the global GDP, connected impact is the value to society that is possible with 5.2 billion subscribers. That level of reach, 5.2 billion people, or 2/3 of everyone on this planet, and their households and their communities, comes with some serious responsibilities. As today's leaders, of course, our first responsibility is to run our business profitably, but now is also, without any doubt, the time for ethical leadership, thinking about how our business affects people and communities. And so to my second question is, how do we create a better future? Well, the mobile industry has been building a better future for many years, now investing in infrastructure and committing to address our biggest global challenges. As the moderator said in 2016 at MWC in Barcelona, the mobile industry was the first industry to fully commit to the UN's 17 SDG Sustainable Development Goals. And we have been working hard ever since, contributing to each one of the 17 goals, including climate action, digital inclusion, gender equality, sustainability, among others. We now know that 1 year of mobile broadband coverage reduces extreme poverty by 4% and by about 7% after 2 or more years of coverage. Now, those are pretty stark, fantastic facts. Extreme poverty means living with less than $1.90 or 13 RMB, just 13 RMB per day. Think about that reality for a moment, and what it would be like to live with a severe lack of basic human needs: food, shelter, sanitation, and information. And we now know that mobile broadband reduces extreme poverty. In 2019, we launched our industry commitment to combat climate change, and we're working on two fronts. Firstly, we're limiting our own carbon emissions. Today, 52% of the mobile industry by revenue has set science-based targets, and of those, half are aligned to net zero by 2050. And we expect this number to continue to grow ahead of COP26 later on this year. And secondly, we're also helping other sectors to limit their emissions with smart connected tech like online shopping, video calling, smart manufacturing, and smart cities, etc. Today, mobile sector emissions from constructing and running networks and the use of handsets is roughly 0.4% of global emissions, 0.4%. And mobile connectivity enables carbon emissions reductions for other industries that are 10 times or so the industry's own emission, so 4% of global emissions. Now this number is expected to double to 2025, giving savings of up to 8%, which is really significant. So we are realizing that a digital world is a green world. This is another huge opportunity for our industry, and we look forward to COP15 this year in China, right at the crossroads of climate, biodiversity, and health. We know that mobile connectivity will play a substantial role in the world's transition to renewable energy. In fact, smart energy systems enabled by mobile connectivity with optimized end-to-end efficiency can save almost 25% of global carbon emissions by 2050. Now, this is more than 90% of today's cars would be eliminated overnight. Now, that's a lot of cars. And so, as we enter a period of inevitable economic hardship following COVID-19, mobile networks will be key to optimizing the transition to net zero emissions, despite not physically reducing emissions themselves. This past year, while the pandemic was totally unexpected, our dependency on connectivity was not. Those that can have been adopting tech faster and now demand connectivity around the clock. But we also need to remember that there are many people that can't. More than 4 billion people globally are not connected to internet, which is the sum of two things. The first is a coverage gap of 600 million people who live outside areas covered by any form of mobile broadband networks. And the bigger gap, the usage gap of 3.4 billion people who live in areas covered by a mobile broadband network but choose not to use that service. So the mobile industry has made strong progress against the coverage gap in the last 5 years by investing some $320 billion in networks, bringing 1 billion more people online. For these underserved population groups, there is only one way, mobile, of getting online and receiving life-changing information and opportunities. Both the coverage gap and the usage gap are addressed in multiple ways by the GSMA, working with both private and public sectors to reverse the current trend, which forecasts that over 40% of people in low and middle income countries will remain offline in 2025. We have developed a mobile internet skills training toolkit, or MIST, which is free training to teach people the basic skills they need to access and use mobile internet. And mobile operatives have now trained more than 3 million people around the world with this toolkit, one by one. And this work is connected to Huawei's great initiative called DigiTruck. Our vision at the GSMA is to unlock the full power of connectivity so that people, industry, and society thrive. There has never been a more crucial time to bring people online and advance towards the SDGs. Today, I urge our partners, public and private, to invest and to innovate at the same level as the mobile industry to bridge the usage gap. The last 12 months have been difficult, but they have reinforced the connection between technological advancements and human progress, between connected impact and a better future for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mats Granrud. Thank you. Food, health, education, and basic need and fundamental rights. How to ensure the society has justice food system and that can end hunger. How to ensure basic education rights and how to deal with the health issue become the priority of all of the world. Let's welcome Ms. Frances Fitzgerald, who is a fine Gael parliamentarian for over 20 years. She served as Irish Deputy Prime Minister from 2016 to 2017, one of only 4 women to have ever held this position, and who had devoted in women equity issues for many years. Ms. Frances Fitzgerald will share her thoughts on digital technologies for sustainable development, green recovery, healthcare. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ms. Frances Fitzgerald.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to speak with you today. I am a member of the European Parliament in Brussels. I represent Dublin City and County. I'm delighted to be talking to you about these very important issues this morning. Connectivity, digital solutions, and sustainable development. And I'm particularly delighted to be speaking to such a diverse audience around the world. These are issues of huge importance to the European Parliament, and they impact right across the European Union's policy framework. I want to quote to you something that a UN rapporteur said in 2011. The rapporteur said, "The internet enables individuals to seek, receive, and impart information of all kinds instantaneously and inexpensively across national borders, and as such has become an enabler of human rights." So I want to focus today in my few words on how the internet, how 5G can become an enabler of human rights. Following up from the last speaker, what are the issues that we need to address in relation to this? The rapporteur at the time said that the internet boasts economic, social, and political development and contributes to the progress of humankind as a whole. We see the huge numbers who are now online, but we also see the gaps, as has just been illustrated. And I think the last year in relation to COVID-19 has given all of us a new understanding of a global perspective on one area, that's health, but it's also given us a global understanding of the power of interconnectivity in all of our lives, in our children's lives, in our society as a whole, and the challenges of that, and it's not without challenge. But now we are seeing the next revolution in the way we do business. How do we make sure that people, everyone can be involved? Well, we have to connect into the UN sustainable goals. I've spent my life as a politician and as a social worker before that, working on issues of inclusivity, diversity, equality. Irrespective of gender, of race, of orientation, we have to make sure that these values are brought into the future development of technology. In every area that you have asked me to speak about, these values are critical. So we have work to do on all of these. Let me take healthcare. Massive amounts of data. And yet what we see, I have to say, across Europe, across China, across the world, we see inequitable and unequal access to healthcare. Technology has the power to revolutionize this. We've got some taste of it this year with COVID. Very simple things like prescriptions to pharmacies, GPs not insisting on seeing people, but doing internet consultations. You take two areas I'm very interested in. You take breast cancer and you take lung cancer. What have we got across Europe, around the world? We have unequal access to basic care. We have huge potential for technology to change this. Let's make sure we do it. It's a global issue. It's not just a European issue, it's a global issue. We can help research. We can crack cancer. We can do so much to change these major diseases if we harness the power of connectivity and make sure that there is access to it for everyone, because we know that health is socio-economically determined to quite a degree. That means we have to challenge digital literacy. We have to challenge the digital gap. It's very disturbing to me in Europe that the gender gap in relation to, for example, AI and newer technologies is increasing, despite women's higher education not decreasing. So that's a challenge for all of the companies to take this on board. If we look at education, let me say to you, the voice of the child. I put the voice of Irish children into the Irish Constitution. This is relevant when it comes to connectivity. We have to ensure that children are safe, but that children have access to this technology. We have to make sure that socio-economic factors do not impede some children's access. Even now in Ireland, a developed economy, in other countries, we see that many children do not have access to the kind of technology that they need to continue their education during COVID. This is not good enough. We can all make a difference in relation to this. We need partnerships between the companies. I've seen some wonderful ones, let me say, between the companies, communities, schools, non-governmental organizations. We must build bridges between those who have the access to high technology, who understand it, to share it as bridge builders with our society. Now, many companies have enough to be doing, getting on with providing the delivery, developing the research. But these elements are also absolutely essential if we are to have a whole of society, indeed a global approach to this technology. Let's apply it also to food production. We need more smart farming if we are to provide the food needs of the world. We have seen the potential in this in some areas. The EU is determined to come out of this COVID crisis green, digital, equal, and taking the issue of care into account. Because what we have seen around the world is carers playing a critical role. But of course, carers, whether they are frontline or in the home on their own, need connectivity. Patients need connectivity. Let me conclude by giving you an example, a very small island called Arranmore off the coast of Ireland, where the population has been decreasing since 1841. That's just around the time of the famine in Ireland. The island community and a progressive network operator have come together to use technology to overcome the challenges of geographical isolation and to provide Arranmore with a piece of key infrastructure. That is super fast broadband. That is a small island off the northwest coast of Ireland. It campaigned successfully to turn enterprise-grade connectivity into an opportunity for social and economic progress, where people can stay, can rear their families, can connect with the wider world. This is, of course, what we need to see. So let me finish by saying that the rapporteur, the UN rapporteur who I quoted to you, talked about internet connectivity being seen as a universal right. We are used to the concept of universal rights, but I don't believe we have made enough connection to the concept of interconnectivity as a human right. And given the doors that it can open, I think this is a very useful lens and frame to think about in relation to 5G and its development. Of course, it's a political battleground. We know that. And the geopolitics of Europe are changing all the time. We don't have time to go into that in my presentation, but just to say that as we look to the rollout of this amazing development, as we emerge from the current global challenge, let's try and ensure that political leaders have no artificial divides and divisions when it comes to our enabling the people around the world who are currently excluded to having the sort of connectivity that can really make a difference to their lives in all of these areas, in health, in education, in fruit production, and in human rights. Thank you very much, and good luck with the rest of your conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Frances Fitzgerald, for her sharing about food, education, and human rights. Well, Dr. Zhang Wenhong is the director of the Department of Infection of Huashan Hospital, affiliated to Shanghai Fudan University, and a leader of the one of the leaders of the Shanghai COVID-19 Medical Treatment Expert Group. The COVID-19 outbreak in 2020 has made Dr. Zhang no stranger. He came into the public eye with a lot of golden quotes and quickly gained confidence of the Chinese and the global public. And now let's welcome Dr. Zhang, who will share his thoughts on how technology can support SDG 3, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages from his experience. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Zhang Wenhong.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be invited this afternoon to this afternoon's discussions about sustainable development. Sustainable development is especially important in today's world, particularly when it comes to environment and health. This year's fight against the pandemic is a global topic. We can't help but focus more on the living space, the conditions for sustainable development, and the future direction. We're now in a new year, but the hardships we have experienced in fighting the pandemic over the past year and the challenges that the world is still facing today force us to think about how these disasters were started. With the evolution of Homo sapiens, and after they migrated beyond the African continent, we have confronted intense fights, cooperation, and coexistence with the environment, especially since the creation of the agricultural civilization. The rapid growth of population and the congregation of human beings have made it possible to develop infectious diseases. In fact, the infectious diseases that we have identified till today are very common and natural phenomena in the whole process of human development. All microorganisms live in their own spaces. As human presence expands, the boundary between human beings and nature gradually blurs. Therefore, since the 1980s, we've been hit by a number of infectious diseases, such as AIDS, which began in the 1980s, and we have been unable to cure it. There are more than 60 million people living with AIDS and more than 20 million deaths worldwide. Then there was SARS in 2003, H7N9, bird flu in 2009, MERS in 2012, and Ebola, and hepatitis, which have been spreading on the planet for decades. All of them come from the nature. In particular, the 1918 flu, we traced back and found that it was the result of bird flu virus transmitting between different species. And the COVID-19 that we are facing today is also known to be a result of the relationship between human beings and nature. Infectious diseases, environment pollution, and food safety are challenges that human beings have to face in the course of development. How can we get along with the environment? Today, some people think the problem is the development pace is too fast. But in fact, development is an internal topic. Human beings should not stop developing, but should be good at solving problems in the course of development. Every time an infectious disease occurs, the ultimate solution comes from science, technology, and human unity, which victory was achieved in the end. Today, at such an important time, when the global pandemic control has achieved some success, China has basically brought it under control, and in other countries that were severely hit by the pandemic have seen new cases decreasing. Vaccine R&D has achieved some success worldwide and is playing an important role. At this point, we can't help but think again about how the world will develop during and after the pandemic. I think two aspects are of profound significance for our future development. One is about our relationship with the environment. I believe after going through this pandemic, we will better understand why we need to address all problems caused by environmental damages during the development. And Shanghai has recently proposed the 2025 carbon emission target, the use of photovoltaic stations and the promotion of environment-friendly cars. All of them will contribute to this target. The relationship with the environment has caused some diseases, and we have to use technology to help us out. Besides having everyone vaccinated, the advances in communications have brought us enormous benefits, such as epidemiological origin tracing, green codes for traveling, and online education. In addition, in my own work, I have enjoyed the benefits brought by technologies. For example, teleconsultation, the construction of a multi-drug resistant tuberculosis treatment network in multiple centers across the country. In all these cases, communication technologies helped us enhance healthcare capabilities. In the future, we must get along well with the environment. We must protect the environment and be good friends with the environment instead of gaining benefits by disrupting the environment so that we will become healthier. At the same time, we need to leverage science and technology to solve problems in our development. I hope that you can find more ideas and wisdom in the remaining part of the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Zhang Wenhong, for his suggestions. And as we all know that during the pandemic, this is a tragedy, but at the same time, we have emerged lots of heroes, volunteers, and people who have made commitments to fight with the virus, with the situation, with the disaster, and try all their efforts to make it a better world. So in the past hour, we have lots of inspirations and sharing and views from perspective from our institution, from UN, from KOL, from many influential instructional people. And in brief, we know that digital technology connects better lives and the well-being of people, which progress of humankind as a whole. And also the full power of connectivity is thriving people, industry, and society. Honest human consensus is the very first step to connect all UN SDGs, and technology is the way to achieve it. At the same time, education, always the fundamental human rights, and the collaboration with different stakeholders and digital technologies can close the inequitable education gap, as well as human rights, as well as the education, food issues, health issues. These are not only happening here today, but also in the future, tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. So I believe these fundamental elements and concerns will be always there, and we all need your attention and efforts to make it a much, much better world. And as I mentioned, we have a very special interaction panel discussion now. I would like to invite, first of all, Mr. Chatterjee and also Professor Li Zhiqing. Please come up to the stage. And also we have, very honored, we have Ms. Frances Fitzgerald online together with us, and also Mr. Matt Granrood online together with us. Please take your seats, Mr. Chatterjee. Yeah. 李教授这儿没关系，李教授您请啊。Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Please take your seat. Right. This is the interaction Q&A, but we also welcome all of you to be part of it. But first of all, I think there might be some questions you would really like to share with our guests today. Like to achieve UN SDG goals, reaching consensus requires common understanding and compromise. Setting ambitious targets requires political will, taking action requires solid financial investment and technology breakthrough. So, Mr. Chatterjee, I think the first question goes to you. Like, from your perspective, what are the key challenges for sustainable development, like health, education, green initiative, etc.?
Thank you for that question, and greetings to the other panelists who I see online, and it just takes me to what Geraldine said. You know, I think one of the biggest challenges the world faces is the lack of political will around SDG 5, which is gender equality. When I look at a country like Ireland, it has turned around 180 degrees from where it was in terms of sexual reproductive health and rights to where it has arrived, and today stands up as a model of that. I was in Kenya when the International Conference for Population and Development was held. And I heard the Chinese statement there, which was quite remarkable. You know, there are many countries where you have actually seen a rollback of those rights. But today, countries like China, Ireland have come forth and are really stepping up on that agenda. So to me, if the world has to achieve the 2030 agenda, we have to have an equal footing for men and women, boys and girls.
Well, I think Ms. Frances Fitzgerald would, agree, can't agree more, right? And I would like to have some of your views to share with us about this point.
Well, look, thank you for the compliment to Ireland. We have done a lot of work on equality, but like countries all over the world, we have unfinished democracies. That's the reality when it comes to gender equality. We have a huge amount of work still to do, and we need to see more leadership. We need to see male champions emerging for gender equality. We see some of it, we need to see more. Most of the leaders in the world are male. Women are not involved in decision-making in critical mass around our world. And so we have to rely on current male leaders to take on board this issue of gender equality, knowing actually that the economic case, quite apart from the human rights case, quite apart from that, it is an economic imperative. It's an economic imperative for companies because if you have inclusivity, diversity, if you respect inclusivity and diversity, you get better economic returns. On the broader SDGs, it seems to me we need, again, it's a question, I agree with the previous speaker, about political will. They have not really been translated into the kind of action with the speed with which they need to be. And I think we have to do a lot of education. We have to do a lot of talk about implementation now. It's fantastic we have the SDGs. That is great progress, that there is a shared vision about having a greener world, a more equal world. But you know, to implement it around the world is going to take a lot more leadership, political leadership on the green agenda, digital agenda, the equality agenda, but equally it's going to take information, education about why these goals are, why there's an imperative around them and a crisis when it comes to climate change. Thank you.
Right. I think equality not only about gender equality, but also equality of race, different race, no matter where you're from, like developed country, developing, or even underprivileged one, you all have to share the equal rights. And as to education, Professor Lee is the dean, so you might have some to say, something about education issue, right?
It's a good question. I think the key problem currently we're facing about the sustainable development is how to balance the need of development and the environmental protection. Right. Because you know, each people, especially young people, you want to enter in financial sector, and meanwhile, actually the sector of sustainable development need more and more young people. So we have to, just as I mentioned, that we have to mobilize more and more resources, especially the capital, the money, into the sector of sustainable development, and to get these two targets together. I mean, the money maker and the sustainable development together, and then can attract more and more young people to entering, this green development sector field. And
Right, right. And as I mentioned that this section we have received quite lots of questions and inquiries from our broadcasting notepad. So here we have another one to say that, to ask, to address the challenges, what are the roles for each key stakeholder group and what to do, governments, NGOs, companies, people, digital technology, etc., etc. So I see that Mr. Mats Grenrud, you are quite attentively to listen all the questions. Perhaps this one, you can give us some point of view first.
Well, I mean, this is a wide area. I think the SDGs, when they were launched, gave us a good framework to work with. And many of the questions were obviously not new, but it gave us a good framework. And SDG 5, gender equality, I think is maybe most pertinent to solving currently. It's an issue that is not going to end well, put it that way. I mean, my industry, the telecom industry or tech industry, we're not very good at the gender equality, unfortunately. I think roughly 18% of our workforce globally is female, and that is simply not good enough. There are so many studies showing that having a more gender equal management team, workforce provides much better profitability. It's quite clearly so. I mean, we cannot continue to sort of fish in 50% of the talent pool. We need 100% of the talent pool to fish from. And it's quite evident that that has to change. And when I speak to the industry leaders from my industry, everyone is very much aware and working hard to change it. But it takes time. So there is no letting the foot off the gas pedal, but we need to be somewhat patient, but keep on the pressure. And then, of course, climate is another area which is equally important, where tech certainly can provide help and many times as well be one of the solutions. So I think, you know, working together with the public sector and the private sector has never been more important than right now. To join forces, this is not one side that can fix the problem. This is something we all need to work together. And COVID, in a way, is a clear example of that we cannot work together. We cannot work by ourselves here. We need to work together to solve it.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Grenrud. And I thought that because it's different roles according to different perspectives, so there is different role, but there might be some very similar common efforts and common commitment. So what do you think, Mr. Chatterjee?
You know, ultimately, it is about a nation state and its perception of how it wants to advance its society. And today, you know, when we see the meteoric rise of China, for example, as a country which had per capita GDP in the 60s of about 3%, and that of the United States at that time was about 27%, and now, you know, it's not just caught up, but is actually looking at surpassing it. It is because I think you had a chairman by the name of Mao who said, you know, they hold up half the sky, and Nikki Kristof actually speaks to that in a book. I really believe that this needs resolute purpose. If there is one thing we should get right, it is to get the primacy of equality of genders right. After that, everything else will fall into place. But that is why he talked about holding up half the sky. And I think this is where perhaps even as the United Nations, the private sector, the foundations, politicians, civil society need to come up with a united focus. And there we need leadership. And I think we have great quality of leaders all across the world where they could come with one message. And I hope I would count on Geraldine to kind of encourage a discussion around this at the upcoming UN General Assembly. I think, you know, a few countries coming together and really speaking to it and turning, you know, jargon into action rather than allowing it to remain as jargon. And I think this is where the real test is going to be. But nation states that have done it, they have progressed. Nation states that have not done it have got left behind. And the principle of the SDGs, which is the North Star, is leave no one behind. And I think gender takes a very, very fundamental role to that.
Right. As to the we are trying to make the efforts to achieve SDG by 2030, but especially during pandemic, unity has been the word, to unite the world by not only technology but heart and love. So, Ms. Frances Fitzgerald, people say that it's quite hard for unity, the real unity, unless some special occasion or disaster happens in this world. How do you think, especially during this very special period?
Well, it's always challenging. And by the way, it's great to hear such a male champion as the previous speaker. I find it very encouraging. But let me say, I mean, the geopolitics of our world are often very disappointing. And we as politicians have to work always to try and make sure that the best interests of our global systems are put to the forefront. The United Nations tries to do that. So many NGOs try to do it, but politics can get in the way. But politics can also be a force for fantastic good. To work towards a politics that takes account of these global issues and work constructively together despite the differences, the orientations, the ideologies, and they can divide us very deeply, and they do in our world currently. And the only way we can get over them is by a culture of transparency, a culture of openness, and a willingness to tackle the world's problems together, of gender, of climate change. But let me put in an emotion point here in relation to COVID-19. I did a report to the European Parliament on the impact of COVID-19. There is a differential impact in relation to COVID, depending on gender. Obviously, more older men are dying, and we absolutely need more research to understand the impact of the disease, of the pandemic. But equally, the socio-economic impacts are very, very challenging for women. The increase in domestic violence, the increase in losing employment because many of the sectors that women are in are more vulnerable. The whole question of care. Who does the caring in China? Who does it in Europe? It's primarily, and with apologies to the men who do a lot of caring, because there are men who do much caring, but the majority of care work is low paid. It's done by women across the world. And we have to value that and create an economy around it, because there is huge potential for jobs in this area. So to answer your question, politics at its best in the pandemic brought the world together, sharing vaccine research, sharing PPE, and China played its role in that around the world. That's what we need to see more of in other areas. And we need to see it in climate change and working towards the Paris Accord and so on. And I welcome the United States coming back into the Paris Accord. So it's critical. I mean, politics is critical. It's the best we have. And we have to make sure that the goals of the SDGs, of equality, and of digital access are promoted and shared by high-quality leadership.
Thank you very much. And as to education, also turns to Professor Lee. What can you do? I mean, if you can do, what would you like to do first and most?
Yeah, as a research institute, our first job is making the good, research about, the sustainable development. But I think it's also very important for us to provide some, suggestion for the society and the government. As you know, we especially need a systematic framework to promote the sustainable development, especially, to reduce the gap of the public sector and the private sector. So I think, such as, establishing some green standard to promote the environmental disclosure, and also to encourage more and more people, to enter in, just I mentioned, entering this, environmental protection sector. I think it's very important for us to find the discipline behind the sustainable development in China and also in the whole world.
Great. And also, I would like to ask Ms. Stefania Giannini. Can I see you on the screen now? Because I know you're part of us and you are with us now. And I think we would really like to hear some of your views upon this point.
Thank you very much. Just to support what has been said clearly from previous speakers, I do believe that there will not be any chance to achieve goal number 4 without achieving goal number 5. And it's about mainstreaming gender equality in education first, and in empowering girls, young women to become leaders, to take action, to choose science and technology in university faculties, to mainstream gender equality means first having better data and evidence in order to inform better policy. This is about the dimension that Ms. Fitzgerald underlined, political will, political commitment, and also role models. I think that role models can really help very much young women and girls see that it's possible to do. Just in a picture of G7 or G20 international bodies, you can see how many women sit around the table in that at the highest level. And this is something that can really be changed through a better education system, gender-oriented. And this is what UNESCO is trying to do, especially within the COVID-19 pandemic. We see, for instance, that violence, early marriage, early pregnancy are at risk of a huge increase, as we already saw in other crises like Ebola, for instance. But of course here, numbers will be amplified by the amplitude of the crisis. So it's about the joint forces, and I think the role of the private sector, together with the UN, together with political leadership and governments, is a critical one, is about sharing a collective responsibility on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the guests and a wonderful opinion and sharing. And we have the theme today that connected shared prosperity. Connection is not only about technology, it's not only about speed. It is the way to unite the whole world. It is the way to keep you walking ahead and to bring out more sustainable development. It's not only about build back better. It is more tries to build more better, isn't it right? We need, all of us need this confidence, we need the spirit, we need connection to make this world a much, much better one. I think you have the responsibility, me have, all of us, we all have it. So let's make it truly our shared prosperity, not for now, but for the future. Thank you very much for all of you participation. Especially thank you, Mr. Chatterjee and Professor Lee, and also thank you, Stefania Giannini, Mr. Matt Garud, and very much thank you for Ms. Frances Fitzgerald. It's been a wonderful, inspirational lesson. Not only speech, it's a lesson. It's a wonderful afternoon, and thank you for your time. Let's hope for a much, much brighter future. See you soon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you for your support, and we need your support as always. Thank you. Thank you.